start by putting a nymph hook in your vise. So I'm using Firehole sticks number 633 in size 12 today for a local lake that the fish like these large size. However, any standard 2 1x long nymph hook will work just fine for this pattern, including this Daiichi 1560, which is shown in a more common size I usually fish. Once your hook is securely in your vise, start your thread with an eye-length space behind the eye of the hook, and bring your thread back to the start of the bend of the hook. This fly's tail is commonly tied with fur from a rabbit's mask, but I like tying the whole thing with pheasant tail or turkey wing feather. If you're using pheasant tail, we won't need the bottom fluffy fibers like this. You also want to try to find the longer and stiffer fibers on the side of the feather. As you can see, this side of the feather is very webby and soft. So first strip off all the unwanted fibers at the base of the feather. And then align the tips of around 10 or so of these fibers by stroking them out straight. So I switched hands here to better show the tips aligning in the camera. When they're aligned, just rip them off at the base of the feather, and then clip off all the squirrelies at the base of the fibers. And they're now prepared. Measure out about a half hook shank length, and then transfer that measurement to your other hand and tie it in with a pinch wrap and then a loose wrap. Then I like to wrap under the tail to help hold it out straight. Then proceed to wrap up the hook shank to just shy of the hook eye, all the while doing your best to keep the pheasant tail on top of the hook shank. Now take some gold tinsel, or small size gold wire on smaller hooks. Now my tinsel is double-sided. One side is gold and one side is silver. To make the gold side visible while wrapping, start your tinsel with the silver side out. I also like to tie this on the side of my hook to help keep from jostling the tail when starting your wraps. And tie it down all the way to just shy of the tail. Now we need some dubbing. Hare's ear dubbing obviously is the choice here. I have the natural color. You can see that there is a mix of fibers in this, from more coarse guard hairs to fine matted underfur. The mix is perfect for this fly, and it's what gives it its look. Dub on a very thin and tight noodle, and even pick out some of the guard hairs that won't compress. You don't want the abdomen as buggy as the thorax on this fly, and you'll see what I mean later. Also build a taper into the noodle if possible. Then proceed to make touching wraps up the hook shank, ensuring that there is a bit of taper enlarging as you go up the hook towards the eye. And if you need, you can always add a bit more dubbing. You really want to cover a good 2/3 of the hook with this dubbing. Now take your tinsel or wire and start making even spiral wraps up the hook shank until you reach your thread. And then capture the tinsel and trim off the waist. Now pull back the ends of the pheasant tail and tie it back to about 1/3 of the way down the hook shank. After you tie it down, you can always check by pulling it forward to see if the proportions look good. If you're happy with the look, then select a bit more dubbing and start dubbing onto your thread. This time though, we want to dub it on loose, and we welcome those pesky stiff guard hairs. And of course, as always, you can add more. Once you reach the eye of the hook though, either tighten up the remaining dubbing, or if you're adding more, make sure this final noodle is fine and tight. This will help keep the guard hairs out of the eye of the hook. Also stroke all the fibers rearward after the last wrap of dubbing, and wrap back on top of them to keep any pesky fibers angling rearward and not in front of the eye of the hook. Now pull all the remaining pheasant tail fibers forward while stroking the dubbing fibers downward. And place your thumbnail on top of them to flare out the fibers a bit. Place a couple wraps over the pheasant tail to hold it in tight. Then pull up and place a few wraps in front of it as well. Now wet finish your fly. Then pull the pheasant tail fibers up tight and snip them off close, trying to avoid clipping off anything you don't want to remove, like your thread. So not necessary, but I like to trim up any long guard fibers from the abdomen, and also trim the legs at a reasonable length for the thorax. Now, this fly is fishable the way it is. However, for durability and a pretty neat look, I like adding a bit of UV resin to the pheasant tail wing case, and make sure a little goes over the whip finish. So you want to let it soak in for a second. However, while searching for my bodkin, I accidentally let it soak in way too long. You can, by the way, use a bodkin to move the resin around to where you want it. Just do it a little quicker than I did here. So once you're happy with it, zap it with your UV light and the fly is good to go. So as you can see, the resin on this one soaked in a little too much. But this fly is still fishable and will catch fish for sure. And here's one done correctly, when I had everything including my bodkin at hand, ready to go. And using a more viscous resin than I did could also help give you more time to play with it. so this fly is very easy and quick to tie, and really doesn't use many materials at all. And I also find the pheasant tail version much quicker than the traditional version with the hair from the Hares mask, and I think it comes out looking much better personally. Hares ear dubbing now comes in a wide variety colors as well, and you can even tie these with other types of dubbing also. So go give this very easy and effective fly a try soon. Oh, by the way, here's a few fish from that lake that I use this larger size hare's ear on. Some really nice rainbows that were tearing this large fly up, left and right. However, I have also caught many fish on creeks and streams with much smaller sizes as well. I also wanted to remind you that all the materials used today are in the description section of this video, but you might have to click the Show More button to expand the section to view. I also have included links to where you can purchase them online. Also included a discount code for the fly artist as well, as a special thank you for being my subscriber. So please use that, as you won't be able to find deals this good anywhere else. Well, thanks for watching. If you like this sort of thing, please subscribe and share with all your fish-loving friends. Also, do me a favor and hit that like button. So I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.